to subscribe!
I am Charis Gumawa. Today, we're going to discuss the power of the purse. What is power of the purse? The power of the purse is the ability of one group to manipulate and control the actions of another group by withholding funding or putting stipulations on the use of funds. The power of the purse can be used positively or negatively. Who really holds the power of the purse? It has always been the popular belief that Congress has the spending power or the sole authority to appropriate public funds. Of the three branches of government in a democratic system such as the Philippines, the executive holds the power of the sword, judiciary the pen, while the legislature has the power of the purse. In a particular, House of Representatives is designated by the 1987 Constitution as the chamber of Congress where all appropriations should exclusively originate, with the Senate having the right to propose amendments. The President only proposes the budget, but it's still Congress that supposedly has the final say where the budget should go. That is the ideal. But often, the ideal is not quite what is real. In this regard, the question is, does Congress really hold the power of the purse? The reality on the ground, in a nutshell, Congress' power of the purse has been significantly diminished, and in reality, it is the executive branch that in law and in practice wields more power over the purse. This state of affairs came to being with the issuance of Presidential Decree number 1177 of Marcos regime, which revised the budget process supposedly to institutionalize the budgetary innovations of the new society, but which virtually arrogated the budgetary powers of the legislature and to the executive. Further loosening the hold of the legislature on the purse are two more Marcos laws, namely Presidential Decree 1967 and Presidential Decree 81, which is automatically appropriated funds for debt payment. The revised Administrative Code of 1987, or the Executive Order number 292, which is now in effect, defines the powers and limitations of both the executive and the legislature in the preparation, authorization, and implementation of Annual Generation Appropriations Act or the GAA. Unfortunately, it did not undo the intent of Presidential Decree 1177 but even largely upheld it. Contrary to the principle laid out in the 1987 Constitution, which took effect after EO 292 of Congress having an active, not passive, participation in the budget process.
Good morning, classmate. Good morning, Ma'am Grace. I'm Christina Maradas, and I'm going to tackle the budgeting process. What is government budgeting? Government budgeting is the allocation of public funds to attain the economic and social goals of the country. It also entails the management of government expenditures to create the most impact from the production and delivery of goods and services. In short, ang government budgeting is allocating revenues and borrow funds. Why is government budgeting important? Government budgeting is important because it enables the government to plan and manage its financial resources to support the implementation of various programs and projects that best promote the development of the country. Through the budget, the government can prioritize and put into action its plans, programs, and policies within the constraints of its financial capability. What are the major processes involved in national government budgeting? Budgeting for the national government involves four distinct phases. Number 1, budget preparation. Number 2, budget legislation or authorization. Number 3, budget execution or implementation. And last, budget accountability. In short term, sila po yung budget cycle. and we'll discuss for the next reporter po.
I am Erica Arborilla. I am here to discuss the four stages of budget cycle, which is the budget preparation and the budget legislation. The budget cycle is a four-stage process that is generally consistent with international standards and practiced in democracies. It is designed in accordance with law, primarily the Constitution. Book number 6 of the Revised Administration Code of 1987, Executive Order number 292, and relevant Supreme Court rulings. Budget preparation, May to July. This involved updating of macroeconomic targets and assumptions, formulating a budget policies and strategy, issuing a budget call, preparing budget proposal by agencies, reviewing budget proposals, presenting the budget to the Cabinet and the President, and finally, submitting the proposed budget to Congress. The proposed budget is guided by, among others, the Medium-Term Philippine Development Plan or MTPDP. Next is Medium-Term Public Investment Plan or MTPIP. Comprehensive and Integrated Infrastructure Program or CIIP. The Local Government Code LGC and other appropriations law. The President's budget is transmitted to Congress in the form of the President's Budget Message or PBM. Budget of Expenditures and Sources of Financing BESF. National Expenditure Program or NEP, Staffing Summary, and the Organizational Performance Indicator Framework or OPIF. Budget legislation, August to December. The proposed budget is first reviewed by the House of Representatives, which drafts a General Appropriations Bill or GAB and endorses this to the Senate, which may make its own adjustment. Any disagreeing provisions and amendments between the House and Senate are discussed in a bicameral committee. Ratification of the bicameral committee report and the GAB by the two chambers signal its finalization, after which the House would submit the budget to the President, who signs it into a General Appropriations Act or GAA. Congress cannot increase appropriations proposed by the President, but may reduce it. The Chief Executive in turn may veto expenditures item in the GAA, line item veto power, although Congress may override this veto. If Congress fails to pass the GAA of the immediately preceding year shall take effect.
Good morning, classmates. I am Grace Barreto and I'm going to discuss the last two stages of budget cycle, which is the execution and control and the accountability. Executions and control. This stage entails the preparation of a national budget program based on the GAA, agency work and the financial plans, and the quarterly allotment and cash programs. Fund releases indicated by Special Allotment Release Orders or SARO, Notices of Cash Allocation NCA, and Notices of Non-Cash Availment Authority or NCAA. Implementation of programs and projects by the agencies and the review of financial and the physical reports. The President, Senate President, Speaker of the House, Chief Justice, and heads of constitutional commissions may use savings to augment other authorized appropriation. The President may also impose reserves to cover contingencies. Accountability. This entails the conduct of the reviews and audits and the preparation of several reports including budget utilization summary reports, agency performance reviews, agency annual reports which includes financial and physical accomplishments, Audit reports by agency. Audit reports by agency to be completed by April of the succeeding year, and the consolidated annual financial reports covering the national government, all local governments, and governments corporations. These are legally mandated reports which are required by the Congress, the Commission on Audit, the Department of Budget and Management, and the Office of the President.
I am Emerson Saremo. I am the next reporter. The executive branch has opportunities to monitor performance during the execution and accountability stage of the budget cycle, but it appears no better in this regard. Spending agencies are required by law to submit quarterly work and financial report to Congress, COA, the Department of Budget and Management, and the Office of the President, but they fail to meet this requirement in a complete and timely manner. Congress, in turn, fails to pursue the matter. Compliance in financial audits. The COA also reports many instances of unresolved recurrent adverse audit findings among national government agency and corporation. However, no mechanism for systematic legal or administrative action against agency with such findings. It is also unclear whether or how these findings have any bearing on future agency budgets. An instrument for partisan politics, much of the imbalance in the power of the first pertains to budget execution. Congress does not have the power to increase appropriations proposed by the President, but it can reduce them or realign allotments as long as the total is maintained. The executive, however, can override the mandate of the General Appropriation Act as enacted by Congress in a number of ways by not releasing or by delaying the release of authorized appropriation. Some opposition legislator and local government officials complain that their allocation are not released to their constituencies simply because they oppose the president. By transferring unused appropriation to savings and using this amount for other purposes within the executive branch. Senator Ergado Ongara, during his speech at the launching of the 2008-2009 Philippine Human Development Report, pointed out this power of the president to align saving as what he called as tremendous mischief. He stated that this power of the president renders any congressional judgment virtually meaningless. Through the use of discretionary, intelligence, confidential funds over which the legislator has the oversight, as well as unprogrammed funds in the budget, the president also has the power to decide on debt service, which can significantly affect the total amount of resources in play over the year. Senator Angara surmised that with all the powers of the executive over the budget, the president, as in by some legislator, effectively has control over one-third of the entire General Appropriation Act.
I am Charis Gumawa. Is the budget enabling or constraining? The budget is constraining of human development and good government. The budget is inflexible as regard both allocation and procedural rules. Inflexibility arises as the result of both binding budget ceilings and mandatory obligations, but it also seems to derive from an overall bias for administrative conformity and simplicity in the budget rules. Affected by such inflexibility are agencies like the Department of Education that require room to plan strategically and achieve long-term outcomes. The lack of headroom in the budget also engenders dependence on foreign funds or ODA for critical projects, including reform initiatives. Weak congressional oversight over these funds, combined with inherently powerful spending powers of the executive, has invited corruption, weakening government institutions even further. The power to relax the constraining features of the budget process is lodged more with the executive than with Congress. Given its powers over the purse, the executive can engage in strategic, policy-based, and performance-based budgeting as well as clamp down on leakages if it desires. Without a change in norms on the part of the executive as regards critical collaboration with the respect for Congress, the loopholes in the current budget laws are however easily exploited. So, who holds the power of the purse? Congress likes to believe it does, but clearly that power has shrunk. Thus, to uphold the intention of the 1987 Constitution and restore to Congress the power of the purse, major amendments to the budget law contained in Book 6 of Executive Order 292 have been proposed.